Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Tuğçe Koçoğlu-Hobden, founder of Coaching with Heart and Purpose and host of Light Conversations. I am so excited about my guest today. I have the fabulous Aodaoin Hathaway, who is the founder of Aodaoin Hathaway Dances with Dragons. She's a cosmic wayshower and mystic with a lifelong connection with dragons. Yep, dragons. And more than 20 years of training and experience in various energy healing modalities. She works with the dragons, the divine feminine, and other universal source energies to bring her unique brand of magic into this world in support of her clients and community, living from a place of joy. And stay tuned until the end, where Aodaoin will be taking us through a meditation. You honestly don't want to miss this. Welcome to Light Conversations, Aodaoin. So excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tuğçe. I'm just delighted to be here. Just so delighted.
I can't believe, well, this is my first show of 2022, so first Light Conversations, and I'm super excited that we're starting it with you because your work is just incredible, Aodaoin. So I've just introduced you. And I think before we dive into the interview, I would love you if you could give a little bit of just a little bit of information for the listeners and viewers who might not be so familiar with this type of energy healing modality, the divine, dragon energy healing modality. What would you say is different from with the dragons to that of angelic or other modalities?
I feel that the divine dragon energy, is a very high frequency energy modality. It's also deeply heart connected. And I feel that's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. Looking at energy healing modalities in general, I feel, and I'm sure that, we've experienced lots of different ones between the two of us, but there can often be this real focus on one aspect or another. And that's completely appropriate within each of those modalities. They're bringing through that particular frequency. But what I feel is really interesting about the divine dragon energy healing is that it really, to me, has this perfect balance between that divine energy and the embodied heart energy, which is what we need in order to function beautifully on this world, to function in the way in which we hopefully came in to do so, to share our magic and our wonder and our gifts.
Yes.
So for me, that would be the biggest difference as such between, say, working with the angelic energies, who tend to be quite high frequency. Often the divine feminine is more that embodiment within the body. The dragon energy seems to, that would be my take on it. But I mean, you've experienced it as well. Would you agree with that?
Yes, yeah, I would actually, yeah, definitely, because I feel like it's almost like that high energy, but that also that embodiment, and I think that's what really appealed to me with the work I do with embodiment anyway. So I do a lot of I'm the Kundalini yoga teacher, so it really does bring that energy into my body, and I'm glad you talked about that because I think that was something else that I've been thinking about is this embodiment aspect of the work that we do. But maybe we can go into that a little bit later, especially when we talk about the divine feminine as well, because that is another huge aspect of your work. And I know the dragons are a part of it, but the divine feminine is a huge aspect, and I don't want to leave them out because it's really important. But I think it's so exciting because it is something that's coming up more. You're both coming into our awareness more. People are more aware of the dragon energy healing. We're hearing, we've heard about angelics, unicorns for a little bit longer, and I think there is this. It's come more into our awareness, and I'd love to find out actually if you could share with us how did the dragons come into your awareness?
Yes. I suppose for me, the dragons have always been there. I don't have a time as such where I don't remember them being there. I just didn't know what to call them for a while, because when I was growing up, there wasn't a representation of dragon energy in our world that corresponded to the energy that I was feeling from these beings. The dragons that I was seeing, represented on TV or in books, right, which is where we, especially in Catholic Ireland, that's where you're going to meet your dragon representatives. That was it. There was no connection. They seemed to be very obsessed with power, with wealth, with sort of a heavier vibration. So it's difficult for me as a child to associate the energy of the beings that I would see with that representation. But I gradually came to understand that was what they were. Then as I grew up, it was something that kind of got suppressed, got put to one side, because it was, not something that was very acceptable to talk about very much, or, to even think about. So that connection moved more, I suppose, to the background, until I was, I suppose, in college and starting to discover my own spiritual path and starting to meditate regularly for the first time, and officially calling it meditating, I suppose. As a little girl, it was quiet time, or just staring into space, or daydreaming, or whatever, sitting on the swings. I realize now there were meditative states being entered there, but once I was sort of formally beginning a spiritual practice and interestingly beginning a connection with the divine feminine, that was when that dragon energy came back in very strongly for me. And so from the very beginning, they were part of the healing sessions that I was doing. But I wasn't very vocal about it at the beginning, because, as you say, that there was a lot of talk about angels. Unicorns were quite socially acceptable to talk about. To say to someone, oh, a dragon came in during your healing, I didn't have the confidence at the time to explain it to them. And it was only as I began working more deeply with the dragons myself and began accepting that power within myself and began to embody that, it simply became far more natural and easy to convey that information to someone that I might be working with, because that filter, or that overlay of fear of being misunderstood was no longer present for me.
And I love that you brought up the history, I guess, behind the dragons as well, that they've been portrayed as that dense energy, as you said, that really kind of dense, angry, or we hear about the fire. And I remember when I first, my first fascination with them kind of began. I remember, it happened to be because I'm going to show my age now by celebrating, the year of the dragon, and I'm I do.
Yes, I'm a fire dragon as well. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. So we're possibly born the same year then.
Yes, I think
so. So that's, and then as I was kind of reading and delving more and deeper into these mystical creatures, and thinking, oh wow, they are so much more than what we've been taught or told at school. And I love that, it is that kind of, they are these it's bringing the heart and the body and this embodiment sort of aspects of them, but they are, like you say, they are loving, fiercely loving, and in a way that is, I think, what I admire so much and love about them is the no nonsense. Direct.
direct. They're very, very direct.
Yes,
Yes.
as you know. So it's and in terms of, you know, and I love that you mentioned that, how when we're children we sort of we have this quiet time, we kind of, you know, we don't even recognize that as being a meditative practice, and that's mindfulness and meditative. And you know, we see we're in a society where we're always constantly doing, aren't we, running from here to there to here to there, and just like, ah, come on. Children. And when our kids are, when we're sort of on the swing, or, you know, I used to dance in my room. I used to
Yes.
dance to
Yeah.
my star family, I guess I'd call it, and I'd sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'd close my blinds, and this is when I lived in America about 4. My sister was off at school, and I'd start singing to myself, and I kind of, you know, look out to the stars, or, you know, imagine looking out to it, and I'd really feel that connection. That was my way of, I guess,
Yes.
having
Yeah.
quiet time.
But we do. We do. I feel we have this innate ability within us, especially as children, to have that yearning for that home connection. You know, and we can have absolutely loving, supportive, caring families and still
Absolutely.
know that we are more than the bodies that we happen to be incarnating in, you know. And I feel it's such a gift now that there is all this information out there, you know. I mean, sometimes perhaps there's sort of an overload of information, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my son says, "What did you do before Google?" It's like, I don't know. What did we do before Google? You'd have to go to the encyclopedia
Yeah.
for your school project and hope that you had that, you know, that right letter, and, you know, or go to the library. Now I'm showing my age, but but it is so wonderful for the children today. I know they have their own challenges. I know that they, you know, the social media and the, you know, sort of pervasiveness of phones, and maybe they don't have as much time for staring into space as we did, you know, but at the same time, there are so many beautiful tools out there for them to use and to support them.
Yes.
I feel that's a real gift as well, you know.
Mm.
Even the representation of dragons, you know, once when my son was born, I really wanted him to, I really wanted to share that dragon energy connection with him. And when I went looking, there were all these great little kids' books that really captured much more the energy of the dragons that I felt. So in that period of time where, you know, I obviously wasn't looking in children's books, there had been this sort of awakening within the collective consciousness to the realities of dragon energy. And I find it really interesting that it was coming in at that point initially, especially through the children's writers, through the ones that are connected. That's not fair of me to say. All writers are deeply connected with the heart and that creative aspect, but I do feel like that those that are writing for children have a slightly different frequency. You know, they bring that sense of wonder and innocence through the work as well. They hold on to it as adults, or they have that perspective. They're able to flip to that perspective, and they have that access as a result.
Yes.
So yeah, it was interesting to see how that had shifted, you know, as well. And I feel that that dragon energy continues to be amplified even in the last few years. The amount of interest that there has been in dragons, you know. I suppose for me that the aspect that I would just, you know, I suppose advise people who haven't worked with dragon energy before, you know, to have discernment around it, because the dragons have such a very powerful collective projection on what they look like, on, you know, we've seen them represented in films so many times now, you know, what they look like, what they do, what their powers are. That there can be an opening, if there isn't discernment, there can be an opening for other beings that are not dragons, but who can present in that image of this, I am a dragon, to come forward and to perhaps bring in an energy that might not be fully in alignment with someone's light.
And so would you say it is, when you're starting off, maybe it's good to seek the support of someone who is familiar and has worked with this energy, well, the dragon frequencies before, so it's just kind of about using that discernment if you're not sure, to maybe.
I mean, I personally, I would, you know, I don't believe in saying to people you have to have access to a particular energy only through this teacher or only through this practitioner. You know, I feel that's wrong, actually, and I don't often use, I'm not often that definite, but I do feel strongly that we each have our own divine connection, and there's a direct access to source energy and to all of the divine energies. But there's also a direct access to perhaps not so divine energies. And I would say this, no matter where you're starting, whether you're working with angels or dragons, or you want to do Reiki, or, you know, any modality, I would suggest that you explore and perhaps meet several practitioners and see who you resonate with and whose energy feels aligned with yours. That's important too, but also so that you get a sense of what's out there, you know. And you sometimes, I know I had to, I'm sure you have as well, especially when you're starting out, you might meet practitioners that are maybe not very well meaning, but not quite aligned with, maybe there's not that full alignment that needs to be there, and they're very well intentioned, but the energy gets a little muddled, you know. And so you can leave that session or that group meeting and you're kind of feeling a little off. You know, I say trust that feeling. I was introduced to Reiki just by tagging along with a friend who was going to one. This was in college. And I didn't use any discernment about it. I was like, oh, this sounds cool, you know, I'm going to go. I didn't check in with myself. Is the person who's holding this, is her energy clean, aligned? Is she aligned with my energy? I didn't know to ask any of those questions. You know, I definitely learned some things the hard way. And she was a very, you know, well-intentioned lady. And it was a terrible introduction to Reiki.
Oh no.
I mean, it really was. It was, I came away with feeling physically sick, and my field was a mess, and it just was a good lesson for me. Now I went on later to meet a lovely Reiki master. I became a new Reiki master. You know, I'm not in any way knocking Reiki at all. I've had many beautiful sessions. I've met many beautiful Reiki practitioners. I'm just saying that I didn't use any discernment about that. I wandered into that room in a way that I wouldn't have to anything else. Like if we were going to a Spanish class, I would have said, what's this person's qualifications to teach me Spanish?
Right.
Or a dance class, you know? Yeah. So I think that can be something that people just forget, you know? It's like, oh, it's all, if it's spiritual, it's all light and happiness. And sometimes it's not. You know?
Absolutely. And I think that's just to break it down for the people maybe who aren't so familiar and with the sort of the spiritual aspects of what we're
Yes.
talking about here.
Yeah.
When and I, I guess when we're using this discernment around the energy, so that, I'm glad you mentioned Reiki. I should have mentioned it earlier, because obviously Reiki is a modality that most people will be familiar with, and it is a frequent, and again, it's another frequency, isn't it? It's another
Yes. Yeah.
frequency, which dragon healing is another frequency. What was I going to say about the discernment aspect of it? Yeah, it. I guess we could also call it using the intuition, right?
Yes.
It's when you intuitively feel something, with our field and our kind of our intuition, just like, well, that feels a bit off. Not really sure why. Just kind of really tapping into that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because we've all had that feeling where we walk into a room and we look at someone and we know we don't really like them. And we don't have a rational explanation for it. But there's this energy that says you don't want to talk to that person. Or not even in a room. Say you're on a bus, you're on a train, and someone is standing beside you and you just get an uncomfortable feeling, and you're like, I'm going to move to the next carriage, or and it is about honoring that. If you honor that probably every day unconsciously, you're like, I'm going to move to the next seat down, or I don't want to stand beside this man or this woman or whatever. Don't want to generalize that it's always men. I'm just saying it's, so in that same way, when you want to work with someone, you want to work with a practitioner, use that intuition of, I like this person's energy, or the way that she explained that really made sense to me. Like, it helped me to understand something. Or, there's such a wisdom and a depth within that intuitive hit, of like, yes, for whatever reason, I connect with this person. I mean, I feel there's also, sometimes when there's a difference between discernment and resistance. Sometimes we can experience resistance towards working with someone, but that is generally a more logical thing, right? If I am really drawn towards doing a particular course, right? To a particular modality, a course, and I start finding reasons why I can't do it in my mind, like it costs too much, I won't have the time, I'm really busy right now with this, and this, I'm swamped. That's my signal at this point. I know that's resistance. And then it's up to me to sit down and look at, what is it about the course that really drew me? Was it the teacher? Is it what the teacher is offering, that space that the teacher's holding? Are there particular tools within that modality that I really just kind of intrigued me when I read about them? And then I look at the reasons why, and are those really valid reasons? Or are they just reasons that are coming up because there's some part of me that knows that doing this course is really going to change something for me?
And I feel that comes
so that's different to the discernment around, this course sounds interesting, but the person describing it feels off to me. Am I explaining that
beautifully? Well, I think you've explained that really beautifully, because I was going to give an example, a couple of examples from my experience of when that happens. And it usually comes from me from a place of fear as well. That fear of like you say, how am I going to grow in this once I've done this? I'm going to change as a person. And, even that's in a good way, it can be that is scary for people, right?
It's very scary.
Very scary. And I've got a couple of examples for me. It was after I left, I was, everyone who watches my program, I was in the corporate world for 18 years in digital media advertising. And I retrained to be a transformational coach, and I chose one that was very different to a lot of the others. Like, it wasn't an executive coaching; it was one that actually a lot of healers are drawn into.
Yes.
And there was a reason behind this. And then a couple of years later, there's me going, there's a Kundalini. I'd only been doing Kundalini yoga for quite a short time, really, in comparison to a lot of people. Like, I think about a year or 18 months. And this course came up, and I'm like, ding, I'm doing this, hands up. And then, at other examples, when your divine dragon energy healing system came up as a training course, I'm like, again, I know I'm doing this. And as soon as you're saying, you're discerning, because you've been following these people, you've been working with these people. And I've been on your temples and your monthly circles. So I knew you as a teacher, and I knew the other people my Guru Singh and Brett Larkin, who were my Kundalini teachers. And it's just, as soon as either you give into that and you've done the summit, but then the resistance is, oh, it's the money. I can't. Yeah, can I afford this? Oh no, I can't really afford. And that's like you said, it's the logic. I kind of look at it as the masculine logic starts taking over the feminine intuitive. And we're so used to that, aren't we? We're so used to being in that sort of, we must be very logical about everything and push away.
Well, I mean, it's a very necessary skill here in this world. We need the logic. We need to be able to pay our bills and figure things out. And I feel this is, to come back to what we were talking about, this is part of our embodiment. It's just recognizing that part of ourselves, acknowledging that part is really trying to be helpful. Maybe by paying that money for the course, you're not going to be doing something, you're putting that money towards that particular thing. But it's gratitude, but also sort of saying, in this case, I'm not listening to you. It's bringing in that wholeness, that we really need in order to bring the magic that we hold through. There's a lot of talk about manifesting and abundance, and I mean, every time I feel like I go on social media, which, I mean, I have a somewhat like love-hate relationship with social media. But that's my own resistance that I'm working on. But there is a lot of this manifest your best life stuff, right? Which can be very inspiring, but also doesn't really, a lot of it, not saying all of it, but a lot of it just sort of focuses on specific aspects. And maybe they do those aspects really well. And for the people that need those aspects worked on or worked with, that's perfect for them. But if we're looking at the overall picture, for an incarnation that that you and I want to really live, want to really bring in that magic and share it and inspire others to do the same, we need that wholeness. We need the sort of mature ego with like the logic to work things out. We need the divine connection, that 5D aspect, and then we need that heart energy, so that it all comes together in that embodied form, in our embodied form, that is an aspect of who we are, of our greater multidimensional self. Not to get too esoteric about it, but it's to have that balance.
Absolutely. I think that balance.
And that's
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
That's okay. Yeah.
Just for this, so many ways we can go with this. So, but that wholeness, if we talk about us, the wholeness of us, and there's something, a podcast I listened to actually last night, and I think there's one that you shared with me actually.
Yes,
The
yes,
two guys.
Claudia.
Yes, and there was something really beautiful about what you were saying. What I think, that reminded me of that being the wholeness of ourselves, the whole being, right? Um, but what we, in order to get there, he broke it down to the three ways. And I hadn't looked at it like this in terms of the we awakening past process, but then it's like the growing up element of it, and I talk about this a lot of my Kundalini work, is that growing up element, which we're all, especially the emotional, but we are grown-ups with
Yes.
very young, immature often, and I'm talking about myself, particularly. I know that I'm doing a lot of work in this area to be able to manage and navigate myself through this world from that grown up or higher perspective sort of way. And then there's the element of, or the aspect, which was showing up,
Yes.
which is really interesting. I think going back to that kind of the social media and the resistance, I had that very similar sort of, there's a resistance there, but that showing up aspect, and I thought that was really beautiful. But all that kind of brings us to our wholeness.
Yes. Yes, because we can, and I think he touches on this in the podcast too. Some people focus more on one aspect than another at certain points in their lives. When my son was very young, I wasn't focused very much on my spiritual training. At that point, things were quite challenging financially, emotionally. It was more of a survival mode. And for me, that was part of my growing up process. That was part of my emotions, learning to mature and deal with hardship or challenges in a way that, wasn't lying on the ground screaming most of the time.
Just again.
But yeah, so there can be different times in our lives where we're focusing on different aspects, but I do feel that each aspect at a certain point, then there is something of a balance, and then it's up to us to build on each one. And I know that each time I have some kind of, we'll call it a spiritual breakthrough, but say like some kind of up leveling energetically, there needs to be a balance brought in my physical life. And that might mean is something as simple as decluttering, like, I'm going to go through this bookshelf and I'm going to see what no longer resonates with me, what I can gift, or, as has happened to me several times, a complete overhaul of my business, about how I'm showing up, about the work that I'm offering. So yeah, I feel like they follow a certain sequence so that we can continue to stay in wholeness. And I do feel it's helpful to kind of have that perspective, because sometimes when we go through this energetic up leveling, say you do the course, right? That you had your resistance to, you do the course, you are changed, something has shifted within you. Well, your outer life now has to also shift to reflect that. And I think that's where the fear comes from, because we're conditioned to believe, perhaps, with some justification, looking at human history, that change means bad things, maybe even death. It means pain, it means suffering. We're not really giving a lot of space to that belief, to that possibility that change can actually mean good. It can mean great, it can mean grace, it can mean love, it can mean expansion, and the more, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, taking that leap of faith to leave corporate, probably put you like back to the wall, terrified at times, because it's really, and yet probably you took the leap because your back was to the wall, because you were like, I really can't do this anymore, you know. And what I feel like is now we have the chance to, and this is what I really is my passion in my work, is supporting people to have that sense of wholeness, to have that support within themselves, not from me, you know, just not from their partners or their families, but from within themselves, so that they don't feel like they have to be back to the wall before they make that transformational change. So that they are making the transformational changes from this place of joy, from this place of inspiration, you know, which allows for a lot more expansion and a lot faster, right? Because the changes you're making in your business now are bringing in expansion and lightness way faster than they were a few years ago, when you were still kind of coming from that place of just like back to the, you know, just like pressure, you know, I need to, I'm under
heavy.
pressure to transform right now, rather than I have space to transform right now.
Yes, and it's almost like that pressure. It's like I guess think of the pressure of I know the transformation of a diamond, you know, into
Yes.
that
Yeah.
pressure, friction, and tension is something in life is needed. And I think maybe I had experienced a little bit too much of it for too long. It could have happened sooner. And we do, you know, we go through this and this
Yeah, no, we
learning.
do. We do. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
I
about
mean,
going, you know, being gentle as well on yourself, going, you know what, okay, that was the way I learned then. And now once you've learned it, and then it's suddenly, like you said, it speeds up, right? The lightness is there, and things suddenly start speeding up at a different rate,
yes,
and you're thinking, oh wow.
we do. And I feel that that harshness, you know, that harshness of judgment of, because I know that, you know, even a few years ago, I would have looked back just to say, like that really tough period in my life where we were really struggling on all fronts. And I held a very harsh energy of self-judgment around that, like, you know, oh, if only I had done this differently, or if only I had known then what I know now, you know, it would have been different, or I could have done it better, I could have, you know, we really do have that tendency, I feel, to judge ourselves so harshly. And now I feel there is, because having moved into a different space of expansion, there is a softness and a grace where I look back and say, okay, you know what, those are some mad stupid mistakes, but it's okay. Like, we can laugh. I'm like, she did her best, I did my best at the time. And yeah, I wouldn't be in the position, I wouldn't be in that position now, you know, but it was at that time, that was my choosing of the way to learn through that, you know, that soul forging experience. Now I'm choosing to learn through joy. And that doesn't mean this like happy clappy, oh, my life's amazing, everything's lovely all the time kind of thing, which I think sometimes we hear learning through joy, and you're like, yeah, right, like, you know, I mean, come on, does she live in the real world, you know? It's about knowing that there's going to be challenges. We live in this world, it's kind of the name of the game, you know. It's not set up as sweetness and light all the time, but the energy then that we bring in allows us to see different potentials and different perspectives. And I feel that's the embodiment aspect of the divine, of bringing that joy and that grace and that lightness into embodiment, and saying and seeing it manifest in our lives. And like anything else, it's a practice. The more you do it, the easier it gets. and the more your life starts to reflect it. And sometimes I don't do great. Sometimes I do have days where I'm stomping around all day, you know, in my resistance, basically giving my resistance the one finger and being like, I don't care, I know I'm in resistance, I'm just gonna stay here, you know, have a good wallow, until that becomes ridiculous, you know, until you have to laugh at yourself and say, okay, are you done? Finish now. So yeah, I feel there is that capacity within all of us to learn from a place of joy. Like every single being on this planet has that capacity. It's just a question of how much access they have to it, how much access they want to it. But it's not something that's unique to one person. It's within all of us, you know. And for some people, of course, it will be maybe very hard to access that perspective. And I'm not judging that. I've been there where I wasn't in a place to access that perspective, you know. I mean, I had like postpartum depression, and you know, I wasn't living from a place of joy at that point, but that capacity was still within me.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Yeah, the capacity is always within us, and it's how we, and if we choose to access and activate it, and you know, we've
Nurture it,
nurture
take
it.
care of it, you know.
Yeah, and it starts that healing. I think that self-healing, it starts within ourselves. It's with us, and I think, you know, we've all, you know, we been in our situations, whether, you know, I know you mentioned your postpartum depression. I had depression, and it's difficult, you know, when at that time to sort of separate the self from the thoughts, isn't it?
Yes.
But we have the capacity, and when we do, we can, when we start that healing, that internal, that self-healing, it's that journey then begins to sort of to shift for us, the things that shift for us. And actually it becomes that easy, because I look like in like certain parts of my life like going through treacle. It's, you know, you're wading through it, aren't you? You're wading through these kind of awful what feels like really, you know, very challenging, and they're real life experiences.
Yes.
You know, we are, that you've touched upon this, is we are energetic or spiritual beings having a physical experience, right?
Yes.
We're
And
in these dense heavy
sometimes it's very dense and heavy, and you know, I would really say to anyone who's watching this, who's feeling like they're in one of those treacle times, you know, where it's so hard to put one foot in front of the other, you know, to just keep doing it, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, because it does get better. I know that's a beautiful phrase that's used elsewhere as well, but it does, you know, there is that grace that is given us, and there is that love that is given to us, and if we just can get ourselves to a place of being able to receive it. And I know that for me that has been a journey, and continues to be. It continues to be. I'm not saying I'm there, you know. There are certainly aspects of myself that I would still judge quite harshly, and that I still, you know, in my sort of incarnated self, might be quite angry with or frustrated with. And yet then when I choose to align with divine light, when I'm working on doing that self-healing, you know, there's this great compassion and grace and love for those aspects that comes in, and that holds and heals those aspects, you know. So I just say, just the treacle times will end.
Yes, they certainly
Oh.
will. The treacle times do end and will end. And it's like you said, keep taking the action. It's that embodiment
Yes.
aspect of it, of the action, taking little baby steps through it, and yeah, just being and opening yourself up to love. And then with the embodiment, you're going. I wanted to ask you more about around the divine feminine. You mentioned after university or during university, because I know you lived in New York. You were in publishing as well, so you were in the corporate world. You were New York, busy publishing life, and went to Reiki as well. So you kind of dabbled in a bit of the healing. Obviously, you mentioned earlier that you'd also been sort of put that side of you away because I did the same, pack that little bit up, put it in a box, going, oh, okay, people not really quite ready for this, or I'm not, I just wanted to fit in. I don't know about you as well. I kind of just
Yes.
want, I just want to fit in a little bit and try it out instead of just doing my tarot cards all the day and
Yes.
sitting on my own. So how did the divine feminine come to you?
Yes. So for me, as you say, as I became a teenager, I really did try to put all that babyish imagining to one side,
Mm.
and um, instead that aspect of myself got channeled through reading. I've always loved reading, um, would allow myself that escape that way. But otherwise, it was really, I was not a teenager that meditated or did any of those kind of things. To be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't even aware
Mm.
that they existed. I really didn't.
Yeah.
And then when I went to college, there was uh, just a health food shop there, and they had this little this kind of esoteric, what they called occult section, which had which had tarot cards, oracle cards, angel cards, lots of different books, like by Starhawk, of the witch, the pagan, the Wiccan way. And I picked up it was a book by Starhawk, and who was one of the sort of well-known witch writers, and or is, sorry, not to, but she was one of the early ones, and it was like this whole new world opened up for me through that particular path to the divine feminine. Now,
Mm.
that was my path to the divine feminine. Obviously, there are many others, and I've explored many of them since. But that initial connection with the witch path, the Wiccan path, as it was called at the time, really just opened my heart. I was like, this, the goddess energy.
Mm.
Why has no one told me about this before? you know?
Yeah.
And, I was incredibly enthusiastic. Obviously, you can imagine how, basically still a teenager, but like just suddenly so into this. Um, so I bought lots of books. There wasn't opportunities really for me to study at that time in that place with other people, but I said reading was my thing. I read everything
Mm.
I could get my hands on. I started to do my own practices, my own spiritual practices based on that path, you celebrating the different Sabbats, really moving into that space of the goddess through that particular path. And so that was my introduction
Mm.
back to the goddess, to the divine feminine. And I was going to say she's been a part of my life ever since. She has always obviously been a part of my life, but a conscious part of my life since.
Yes. That's so true. Yes, it's like it's interesting, isn't it? All these are part of us and part of who we are, and and then it's when we become conscious or aware of it, and we start thinking, oh, and bringing that aspects of it in. And are there any particular goddesses or aspects of the divine feminine that you work with, or does it depend on who you're with or who you're working with?
Probably both. Probably it does depend on who I'm working. Like if I'm working in session space, I'm not going to. My logical self might have an idea. I know what this person wants to work on. I know what this goddess does or represents. And in fact, it might be a completely different goddess aspect that comes in. So I don't, I'm grateful for their presence. I don't be like, oh, I didn't ask for you, personally, goddess Isis, Mother Isis is always just, again, since I was a small child, I was absolutely fascinated with ancient Egypt, just fascinated, read loads about it and everything. And she was always one that resonated, even when I didn't fully understand consciously. But she has been, with my complete gratitude, she has been one of my divine inspirations, guides, supports through the years, and continues to be. I also resonate a lot with the energies of the Rose lineage, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and Kuan Yin. These are, I suppose, my constants. It's hard to, it's always a hard question. Like, oh my goodness, I'm like, it's like, pick your favorite song. Oh.
All of them. Yeah. I guess there's, but like you say though, there is an aspect that you can draw that is needed, or you resonate with at certain times of when you need to call that aspect in.
Yes. I mean, and there's going to be goddesses that I work with, perhaps in a more short-term basis for a particular, Kali, Mother Kali, when she needs to come in, she'll come in, and when I see that, or Hecate, I'll take a breath, but like, okay. But I also am so grateful for their support, because I know the difference they have made in my life and continue to make in my life, just by their presence and support. At the end of the day, I have to be open to receive it. I have to take the actions. I have to embody it. But without their help, without that energy of the goddess, it would be so much harder. And aren't we all so done with that? Haven't we like literally been here, done that quite a few times?
Yeah.
It
really feels like it's a time where there is a big shift, right, going on. We are feeling the shifts, and there's this rebalance occurring, and this feminine, the divine feminine. And those who are listening who might, we don't want to, we're not trying to freak anyone out by it. We hope you kind of appreciate the kind of, when we're talking about the witches and the energy of the goddess, and this is just a rebalancing of the universal laws, right? The universe, masculine and feminine, is always needed to be in balance.
Yes. And I feel that's also part of what's happening right now, which is exactly what you're saying, is that the divine feminine is coming in. It's not to negate the divine masculine, or to say that we don't need the divine masculine. Of course we do, and I work with the divine masculine too, that we need that balance. But I suppose just for my personal energy, it is the divine feminine and the dragon's that support me. Other people, it might be the divine masculine and the unicorns. We get to have all this support, in bringing in that balance.
And I love a bit of unicorn. I mean, who would have thought, a few years ago, asked me about unicorns, and, they come to me in my dreams now, and I have, and I think, wow, that was an interesting vision. And yeah, it's about being open. I think it's like really bringing that openness. And I feel like we have been, and this again, this is a personal experience. My masculine energy was I worked in the corporate world. I was a senior executive in a very masculine, literally masculine kind of industry. And I think my burnout came through because I was ignoring my divine feminine. I was suppressing that element of myself. And I do feel like that if when we're suffering or when we're going through challenges, we are imbalanced in many ways in some, so just to kind of remember, there are tools out there that you might not be familiar with them. You might not be, they might, make you feel a bit, oh, that's a bit weird, but be open and just be open with it, because we are so used to being operating in a certain way, and it might just be an imbalance of your divine feminine that needs to come through and just sit and be more intuitive, more softer, being more it was very kind of, the corporate structures are masculine in that structure, in that heart-centered way.
Yes.
I mean, we were slightly began talking about being, heart-centered leadership and stuff in a corporate way, but it was sort of said in more of a, let's tick a box here and let's be winners. Yes. I didn't feel it was very genuine.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, and it isn't. It does take work. Like you said, this is all practice. It's a practice. Everything, a spiritual practice is a practice. And having a, my sadhana practice in the morning, doing the things I do is a practice. And but I guess keep going with it, keep exploring and seeing what resonates and seeing what doesn't resonate.
Yes, and don't be afraid to change it up.
Yeah,
because the practice that worked for you 6 months ago might not be the practice that's aligned with where you are right now. Perhaps through that practice, you're now in a space where you need to try something else.
Yeah,
I think that can also be something that happens, because we are creatures of habit. We're conditioned to work through habit. So it's being open and continuing to be open and to sort of always have that curiosity, that sense of wonder about, oh, what does this do? Or, curiosity and wonder with discernment.
Yes.
But
I noticed the resistance.
Openness. Yes. Yeah. To have that openness, I think you're absolutely right. It's so key. It's so key.
Yeah, definitely. What was I going to ask you? I was I guess, okay, so I'm really curious about, I've loved Mary Magdalene, talk about the goddesses, Mary Magdalene energy. There's that real, I feel like, heart, loving space. And it's another avenue, and again, for me, things keep drop in. I go, oh, I'm going to have to explore a little bit about this now, and then I'm going to explore a little bit about this now, and and I know we can get to, there's a sense where we could just keep, I mean, we will keep learning, right? We are continuously learning and continuously being curious, but as we kind of, I guess, as we run our businesses and business women, we both have our own businesses, and it's about how we kind of, I guess, incorporate that into the work that we do. And I know that you, with your the divine dragon energy healing system and your divine feminine work, how are you now bringing that together? Do you, because I know you've they've been quite separate in the past, is that right? And now are they kind of merging together, blending a little bit more?
They are blending. I mean, I suppose they've always both worked together. I've never said it's one or the other. And even if we're in Dragon Temple and it's the dragon energies that are coming through, before we start, I will have done an invocation that also calls in the energies of the divine feminine. I just won't necessarily do that, live on the call. So I suppose it's also about a little bit what we talked about, what you and I have talked about, which is, what do you get known for? What do you do in the world? And I think that's something, I mean, that's probably a whole other conversation, right? But it is something that we can also get a little stuck on, just talking about that habit. Like, well, I'm known for dragons, so that's the only thing I can do. And that was something that I had to work through as well, because I said people are coming and they're expecting dragon energy. I can't just slip in a little divine feminine energy, and that was all purely in my mind, because the energy is the energy. At the end of the day, if someone leaves the class and they feel great, or they've had an insight, or some spark that was quiet is now stronger, and they're going out to live their life just even a tiny bit differently, it doesn't really matter to them whether it was divine feminine energy or dragon energy or angel energy or unicorn energy, or what sparked that, what aspect of the divine gave that sustenance to that spark. And so I suppose that's where I'm at right now, where I'm just keeping it very open, very fluid. Sometimes in the dragon temple, we will have a goddess aspect come in now, much more overtly, like we are this month, and sometimes we won't. And I feel like that gives an option as well. If someone is really not feeling interested in working with the dragons and goddess Bridget, which is what we're doing tomorrow, then that's okay, but maybe another time the fire dragons would really appeal to them, so that's fine too. It's just that was what was shown to me as the most appropriate energies for that day. So yeah, sorry, did I answer that? Did I just waffle all over the place?
No, I love it. I loved it. And it kind of because I wanted to talk about your work, and this is something you are doing something tomorrow. Okay, this unfortunately this recording probably won't be out.
Yeah, no, I thought it was just an example.
But I would, I did want to say that because I've worked with Aodaoin and I know how incredible she is. So she's an incredible healer and she's an incredible teacher as well. So, is there anything that's coming up that you would like to share with anyone who who might be curious about your work?
Well, I'm not exactly sure when this is going to be out, but we are going to do a free Dragon Temple event in February. February 14th is going to be free if anyone wants to join us. It's because it's Dances with Dragons birthday month as well as my birthday month. So we like to do, I just started this little tradition the first year because honestly, I was so amazed that the business had survived a year. I was like, I have to celebrate this, So it has just become this tradition that each year, every February, we do something fun to celebrate. And I, try and give back a bit to everyone that has supported us, because it's in us, throughout the years. So this year there'll be a free Dragon Temple event if someone wants to come and sit with the divine dragons. It's going to be Dragon Hearts.
Dragon Heart.
Yeah, so it's just, I think it's going to be very loving, very gentle. It's not going to be fire breathing, deep stuff. But it is going to be very gentle but deep healing. So that would be free if someone wants to come to that. And there'll be another one in March. There'll be not a free one in March, but we do the Dragon Temple every month.
Well, if you give me the dates, I'll put them on the in the writing at the end of this as well.
Yeah,
when I put it on my social media and also on YouTube as well, so people want to join either of those. And Dragon Heart is a beautiful energy frequency, so it's like a velvet pink rose petals of just yumminess, yummy.
Perfect description. Yeah.
So join, and the 14th of February. I love that. Is that actually your birthday as well, the 14th?
No, it's not. The 11th is my birthday, actually. So I'm giving myself the day off on the 11th.
Good. Yes, and so you should. You've been working incredibly hard and well, and I know from a place of joy as well. So it's brilliant. Just just keeping my eye out on the time. What else did I want to ask you? Just before we go into the meditation, we've got some interesting dates coming up, Aideen, right? I don't know what your thoughts are on like tomorrow, no, Wednesday, like the second of 2023, and then you've got the 22 of the
So many
two,
twos.
22,
So many
the
twos.
twos,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to do a perspective on these twos, and are you doing anything to celebrate the twos?
Well, for me, the right. So the
Mm.
twos. I mean, I love the numbers. I love checking out the meanings of things. I mean, it really appeals to that Aquarian curiosity of
Mm.
mine. I love to know things, and um, but for me, this whole year feels like a chance to expand, to begin again, to really maybe look at what inspires you and start giving that some nourishment. So for those kind of dates that really stick out, now that's one of them. The third actually is the astrological alignment of Imbolc, which are
Mm.
here in this northern hemisphere is the start of spring. It's actually celebrated in Ireland tomorrow as part of St. Bridget's Day of February 1st. It won't be tomorrow by the time you watch this, but this is now I'm giving you very specific dates on when this is filmed. But it's so these few days for me,
Mm.
from the first to the third, through the third, are times where I'm going to have an extra awareness as I go through my day of what not only the actions that I'm taking, but also what thoughts are popping up, what inspiration is coming in. So that would be what I suggest for people around those dates that can get a lot projected on them, like the 11/11 or 8/8 can especially can get a lot sort of the human stuff projected. This is a gateway, and then if something doesn't happen, you're sort of like, did I do it wrong? Why didn't my gateway work? But to just notice those dates that stand out to you for whatever reason, right? For me, the 2/2 is important, but the 3/2 is also important within my goddess tradition. So
Mm.
and the 1/2 has been traditionally observed. So these next few days, I'm committing to making space for quiet time, even though I have a lot to do work-wise. But to make the space for quiet time, for meditation, for getting out in nature, for doing what inspires me, so that I'm open to these inspirations that are coming in for what is for us springtime, and I feel that's the way I, just my personal perspective is that is the way to work with these dates, is to make them sacred to you, make them sacred to what is aligned for you.
Mm.
If the 8/8 or the 2/2 just feels like too much, you know, put all that aside and just bring in what is sacred to me today, what inspires me today, what uplifts me today, whatever the question is, that when you hear it, there's some part of you that relaxes and says, yeah, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
That is just a simple way of coming back to your heart, that really makes it personal, that personal connection, that embodied connection.
And even when you just said it like that and said it, I felt myself relax, even just kind of, like almost even thinking about the heart, and just that's
Yeah.
creating that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think you're so right. It's about making that space for yourself. And even if it's on a daily basis, I mean, I tend to have a cup of tea break at 11:11 on
I
a
love
daily
that.
basis.
I love
I'm
that.
like,
I love that practice. I'm going to start doing that. I'll set my alarm.
And I
Get
love
my
it. I just like
attention
sit
back.
there, like, oh, it's 11:11, and just just enjoy. And like you say, get out into nature and just reconnect with the Earth. We're on planet Earth, aren't we? We chose to be
Yes.
on planet Earth, and it, what better way than to just be experiencing Mother Earth?
Yes. And I mean, it's not, you and I, we don't live on hilltops, with people bringing us food and quiet, with
Not
no
in this
children
lifetime,
running
no.
around and no homework to get done, even though sometimes that sounds lovely, but that's not the lives we chose. We chose to live very full embodied lives with partners, with families, with work,
Yeah.
in the world. And so it is, as you said, just making it that daily commitment to yourself. Say that even with all of the other things that are going on in my life, I'm taking my cup of tea and I'm standing at the back door, rain, hail, or shine, or whatever it is. If you live in a flat, maybe you make a time to go out on your lunch break and walk in a nearby park, or you get a really nice plant that you put on your desk and you make a conscious connection with that plant. Like, there are ways that we
Yes.
can do it that are incorporated into our day in such a way that means we do it, because sometimes I hear these so motivated people that say, like, they get up and meditate at 6 a.m. and they meditate for an hour and then they do their journaling and go for a run, and I'm just like, I just can't. I need my sleep. And I have to fix lunch, get him out to school. And so for me, that wouldn't work. And I would just end up beating myself up about it. But for me, what works is making sure I get in my daily walk. My commitment is I walk no matter what the weather, I get out and I walk. And that's what works for me. And I do it. If someone can get up at 6 a.m. and meditate for an hour, amazing, do that. But make it something you can commit to and do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I guess I've got a question for the dragons, if they're around, if they're available. Just
Yeah.
any words of wisdom that they would like to bring in, or goddesses, or whoever comes through would want to share some wisdom with us.
Yeah, just from the dragons, really, from the divine dragons. And they're coming back to your vision of the dragon heart energy, of that velvet softness, those rose petals. I'm just bringing that energy in for a second. I just really love that. But to start really resting in that space that is available to you, to each and every one of you, of unconditional love, of divine love, of that grace that is available every day, every second of every day, to start actively calling it in and receiving it. Because there is so much support available and is offered to us. And just the willingness, the commitment to say, I'm open to receive. I'm open to receive learning from a place of joy. I'm open to receive expansion. I'm open to receive upliftment. I'm open to receive freedom, laughter, abundance, whatever it is that really, you feel is missing in your life. Just making that commitment to being open to receive. That's there. Yeah, that's what they're bringing in.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dragon, for that. That's beautiful. I think, yeah. I feel like I had goosebumps when you talked about the love and being open to receive from that place of joy. Just love
Yeah.
that. I absolutely love that. I'm going to write that down my post-it note. And I feel like this year is almost that return to love, to use it's like that return to love, where I'm not an astrological gene. I don't know the technical and all the details of it, but I feel like there is this sort of, there's this, I think the north node, there's a push, there's a pull, there's a north node to, I think it's Taurus, and Taurus is of love, right? Venus.
Yes. Yes.
And
And
Venus has
Venus
been
is
going to
Venus
come
is
back from
regressed. So,
retrograde, right? Yeah.
yeah.
She's so, and then you've got the, I think it's the south node is Pluto. And again, we talked about how death and transformation can be scary for people, but you know, let's choose, you know, that's an important aspect of our evolution and of our development. But we choose love, and I feel like this year is that, yeah, that choosing love. So thank you, dragons. And Aideen, would you be happy to take us through a meditation?
Yeah, a little meditation. Yeah, let's do a little, just a little taster maybe of that dragon heart energy. Would that be nice?
That would be lovely.
Yeah,
Yes.
because that seems to be where they're leading. So yeah, so we'll just I'll use my voice to bring the transmission through. So just taking a few deep breaths, just exactly where you are. Just, you know, your natural breathing, nothing too strained, just beginning to allow your physical body to just rest in this space. Maybe close your eyes. Just sometimes helps to bring that focus inward. I'm calling upon the divine dragons, beings of the highest frequency and light, who love us unconditionally. Just asking for their presence, grace, and wisdom. And they are just bringing in that frequency now of the dragon heart. So you might just want to just place your attention, your focus, conscious focus on your heart, on the heart space. And this is just flowing for those who wish to receive. Is anyone watching who would just rather rest quietly, just held in this divine dragon energy? That's absolutely fine. Just if you're open to receive, you might just be becoming aware of this soft pink light that is expanding through your energy field right now. This holds the frequency of the divine dragon heart energy. It's a very healing, soothing energy. You might wish to just bring it in with each breath. And as you exhale, just any tension that may be held in the physical body, in any of the energy bodies, can just release through the breath. And then just amplifying that frequency of dragon heart. It's just flowing through, especially the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. Just very gently, very softly, bringing this very healing, loving, nourishing energy through. And their focus today is on nourishment. It's on nourishing those aspects of your being that are in need of it right now, especially within these three bodies. Perhaps that are feeling depleted or not quite aligned. Just bringing in that loving nourishment, that nurturing sustenance, that soothing flow And you might be feeling everything feels a little quieter, a little faster perhaps within your field. That is your energy. That is your true energy that is just receiving some divine nourishment through unconditional love right now. And just releasing through the breath any tension, any feelings, emotions, thoughts that might be occurring that are releasing through this nourishing. And then just bringing in one more wave, a blessing with this giant heart for each person watching today. May you be blessed. May you be held in the energies of the divine. May you be held in divine grace always. May you receive an abundance of love, of support in all aspects of your multidimensional life. May you be held and may you know yourself to be held by the divine. And just take a few deep breaths to just receive, integrate, to earth that in as the divine dragons, just stepping back from your energy field, releasing the space. And it is complete. So just taking your time to take some deep breaths and wiggle your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, just opening your eyes, coming back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was
Thank
so,
you.
so beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes I get teary when it comes through.
Oh.
And my voice gets squeaky, but I hope it's too noticeable.
Oh no, that was just gorgeous. Yeah, if anyone practiced this with us, please, any comments? I thought
Yes.
that was really powerful. It's almost like, you know, when you're, you know how our energy feels. We're in. This is a terrible drawing, Aideen. I apologise.
Yeah,
This is, you know, this is us in the middle. Oops, sorry, little post me. We're in the middle here, and when you were saying it's like, you know, releasing it across our energy bodies, it's sometimes we feel like that. It's like a pressure, isn't it? Like surrounding us, and when we let go of that pressure, it's like, oh, we're releasing it out into just so that we're all, instead of separate energy, it's merging with the energy field of
the
that
divine.
around of the divine, yeah. And that love, that pure love that comes through that divine was definitely, I felt, yeah, really felt that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Wow. Right, but I think we've got a few minutes left. I'll try and recompose myself and get back into the podcast or the interview. Any other last words of wisdom that you would like to share with us today, Aideen? It's been such a beautiful conversation.
Oh, it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. I really do. I just encourage everyone to just take that time to connect in with themselves. Everyone is so worthy and deserving of that time to connect with their own heart, because I truly believe each person has so much to bring to this world, and that we have come in to do so, you know. And it doesn't mean that you have to be an energy healer or you have to be out there working in this field as your business. You know, you can work in corporate and hold that heart energy. You can, and I did work in a shop and hold that energy. and it affects each and every person then that you interact with, and you pass on that gift. So just taking that time each day to connect with your heart, to connect with your magic, to acknowledge its importance to you and its reverence to you, because it has to start there. It has to start with ourselves, with us acknowledging this is valuable, and this is a light that is mine, in that I have chosen to bring into this world, and that it is mine to shine. Because we all have our own magic, and that's what makes it such a wonderful weaving in this world. So that's what I would share.
Thank you. Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. Yep. Everyone shine your own light. That's what we want. Yeah, that's what we're here for. Shine your own light in your own unique way. And come and join Aideen's free temple. Is it the temple? On the 14th of February. It's her birthday around then. So, and we'll be sharing some more dragon heart energy as well. If you enjoyed that, you're going to love it. Absolutely love it. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend joining Aideen. And then she's also got one in March, which won't be free, but again, I'll share that as well. So, and thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us today, Aideen. It's been such a beautiful conversation to start the year.
So much fun. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for listening. And yes, just really looking forward to just seeing all your magic coming out in the world.
Oh, and I think we have to come back again because there's so many questions I still haven't asked you.
And that would be good.
Yeah, I would like you wouldn't mind coming back.
Yes.
Brilliant. Sending everyone so much love. Everyone, take care. Lots of love.